Elena had cleaned thousands of hotel rooms in her 5 years at the Grand Metropolitan, but she'd never found anything that made her hands shake like the leather journal hidden under the mattress of room 314. The last entry was dated yesterday, and it ended with 4 words that changed everything. They found me here. The Grand Metropolitan Hotel sat like an aging queen on the corner of Fifth and Madison, its Art Deco facade weathered but dignified. Elena Vasquez had been working there since she was 19, starting in laundry and working her way up to head housekeeper on the 14th floor. At 24, she knew every quirk of the old building, which rooms had temperamental air conditioning, where the Wi-Fi was strongest, and which guests would leave generous tips. Room 314 had been occupied by a woman who'd registered under the name Jennifer Walsh. Elena remembered her vaguely. Mid-30s, nervous energy, the kind of guest who barely made eye contact when passing in the hallway. She'd checked in 3 days ago and was supposed to stay for a week, but according to the front desk, she'd left suddenly that morning without checking out properly. Elena pushed her cart down the familiar hallway, master keycard swinging from the retractable cord on her belt. The hotel was between busy seasons, which meant more thorough cleaning and less rushing between rooms. She liked these quieter periods. They gave her time to do her job properly. She swiped into room 314 and immediately noticed something was off. The bed was unmade, but not in the usual way of someone who'd simply slept there. The covers were twisted and bunched, as if someone had tossed and turned all night. Clothes were scattered across the floor, not carelessly dropped, but hurriedly discarded. The bathroom showed signs of a quick, panicked departure. Toothbrush and cosmetics left behind, towels dumped in the bathtub. Elena had seen rushed checkouts before, but this felt different. There was an urgency to the disorder that made her uneasy. She began her routine, stripping the bed, gathering towels, checking drawers and surfaces for forgotten items. The hotel had a strict lost and found policy. Everything left behind had to be cataloged and stored for 30 days before disposal. As she lifted the mattress to check for the fitted sheet, something dark caught her eye. Wedged between the mattress and box spring was a leather journal, its edges worn soft with use. Elena pulled it free and felt its weight, substantial, filled with dense handwriting. She should have immediately bagged it for lost and found. That was protocol. But something about the way it had been hidden, deliberately placed where housekeeping would eventually find it, made her pause. Elena opened to the first page and saw elegant handwriting. "If you're reading this, then I'm either dead or about to be. My name is Catherine Walsh, and this is my insurance policy." Her hands began to shake. Elena sat heavily in the room's single chair and continued reading. What she found was the desperate chronicle of a woman running for her life. Catherine Walsh wasn't just Jennifer Walsh. She was Dr. Catherine Walsh, a microbiologist who had worked for Meridian Pharmaceuticals until 6 months ago. According to her journal, she discovered that the company was falsifying trial data for a new arthritis medication that was about to go to market. The drug, called ArthriaCare, showed dangerous side effects in early trials, liver damage, cardiac problems, even several deaths, but Meridian had buried the results and fabricated new data showing the drug was safe. "I thought I could handle it internally," Catherine had written. "I went to my supervisor, Dr. Raymond Park, with the evidence. He seemed concerned, promised to investigate. 2 days later, I was terminated for performance issues and escorted from the building by security." But Catherine hadn't stayed quiet. She'd copies the real trial data before her termination, and she'd planned to take it to the FDA. That's when things had turned deadly. Elena's heart raced as she read about Catherine's first warning, a car that had tried to run her off the road. Then her apartment had been broken into, though nothing was stolen. Strange men began following her. Her phone was hacked. When she went to the police, they suggested she was paranoid, suffering from work-related stress. I know how this sounds, Catherine had written, but Meridian stands to make billions from Arthria Care. They've already invested too much to let me destroy it. I have copies of everything, the real trial data, emails from executives discussing the cover-up, financial records showing payments to fake researchers. I've hidden copies in 3 different locations, but I don't know how much longer I can stay ahead of them. The journal entries were dated over a 3-month period, chronicling Catherine's transformation from confident scientist to paranoid fugitive. She'd moved constantly, never staying anywhere more than a few days, paying in cash, using false names. The entries became more desperate as they progressed. Day 67. They found my hotel in Baltimore. Saw the same black SUV that followed me in Philadelphia. Had to leave everything behind. Day 89. Called my sister today. She said men came to her house asking about me. Had to warn her to take the kids and go somewhere safe. Day 103. Running out of money, running out of places to hide. Maybe I should just release everything I have and accept what happens next. Elena realized she was holding her breath as she reached the final entries, dated just 3 days ago, right when Catherine had checked into the Grand Metropolitan. Day 115. Found this place. Small, old, the kind of hotel that doesn't ask too many questions. Registered as Jennifer Walsh. Maybe I can rest here for a few days, figure out my next move. Day 116. Thought I was safe. Thought I could finally sleep. Saw him in the lobby this morning. Marcus Chen, one of Park's security consultants. They know where I am. They always know. The final entry was dated yesterday, written in increasingly shaky handwriting. Day 117. They're here. Saw the black SUV outside. Marcus in the coffee shop across the street. They're not even hiding anymore. This is it. They found me here. I'm leaving this journal because someone needs to know the truth. The real trial data is in Safety Deposit Box 247 at First National Bank on Elm Street. The key is taped under the sink in my sister's garage. Angela Walsh, 1247 Pine Avenue, Portland, Oregon. Arthria Care will kill people. Please, someone has to stop them. Elena stared at the page, her hands trembling. According to the front desk, Catherine had checked out that morning. But what if she hadn't checked out voluntarily? Elena's first instinct was to call the police, but Catherine's journal made it clear that hadn't worked before. The woman had tried official channels and been dismissed as paranoid. If she was really dead, Elena needed proof before she could convince anyone to take this seriously. She pulled out her phone and searched for Catherine Walsh, microbiologist. The results made her stomach drop. The top hit was an obituary from this morning's news. Dr. Catherine Walsh, 34, died yesterday in an apparent suicide at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel. Dr. Walsh, formerly of Meridian Pharmaceuticals, had been struggling with depression following her recent termination. Elena felt sick. It was already being covered up, exactly as Catherine had feared. But the journal proved it wasn't suicide. It was murder made to look like suicide. She scrolled through more news articles and found something that made her blood run cold. Meridian Pharmaceuticals had announced that morning that Arthria Care had received FDA approval and would be available in pharmacies nationwide within the month. They'd killed Catherine to silence her, and now they were about to release a dangerous drug that could harm thousands of people. Elena took photos of every page of the journal with her phone. then carefully placed the original back under the mattress, exactly where she'd found it. If this was a crime scene, she couldn't disturb the evidence. But she also couldn't let Catherine's sacrifice be in vain. She finished cleaning the room quickly, her mind racing. First National Bank on Elm Street was only 6 blocks away. If Catherine's safety deposit box really contained the evidence, Elena needed to get it before Meridian realized it existed. But how could she access a safety deposit box that wasn't hers? She wasn't family, wasn't listed as a beneficiary. The bank would never let her in. Unless... Elena remembered the journal's mention of Catherine's sister, Angela, in Portland. If she could reach Angela, explain what had happened, maybe together they could expose the truth. She pulled out her phone and searched for Angela Walsh, Portland, Oregon. There were several results, but one included an address that matched the journal, 1247 Pine Avenue. Elena's hands shook as she dialed the number. "Hello?" The voice that answered was cautious, wary. "Is this Angela Walsh?" "Who's asking?" Elena took a deep breath. "My name is Elena Vasquez. I work at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel in New York. I found your sister's journal." The silence that followed was so long, Elena thought the call had dropped. "Catherine is dead," Angela finally said, her voice flat. "It was on the news this morning. Suicide, they said." "It wasn't suicide," Elena said firmly. "I have her journal. She wrote everything down. About Meridian Pharmaceuticals. About the people who were hunting her. About why they wanted her dead. She hid evidence in a safety deposit box. And she said the key is at your house." Another long pause. "You could be one of them." "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Elena thought quickly. "She wrote that she warned you to take your kids somewhere safe because men came to your house asking about her. She mentioned that your address is 1247 Pine Avenue and that the key is taped under the sink in your garage." Angela's sharp intake of breath told Elena she'd said the right thing. "Oh my God," Angela whispered. "They told me she was paranoid, that she was having a breakdown. I thought... I should have believed her. I should have helped her." "You can help her now," Elena said urgently. "We need to get that evidence and expose what Meridian did. They're about to release the drug she died trying to stop." "I'm in Portland. You're in New York. How?" "I'll come to you," Elena interrupted. "Can you check your garage? See if the key is really there?" Elena heard movement on the other end of the line. Then Angela's voice became muffled as she apparently went outside. "I'm in the garage," Angela said after a few minutes. "There's something taped under the utility sink. It's a small key. Bank key." "That's it," Elena said, relief flooding through her. "Listen, I'm going to book the next flight to Portland. Don't let anyone else know you have that key. Don't trust anyone until I get there." "But who are you?" Angela asked. "Why are you doing this?" Elena looked around room 314, thinking about Catherine's final desperate hours, about the courage it must have taken to hide that journal, knowing she might not survive the night. "Because your sister trusted that someone would find her story and do the right thing," Elena said. "I'm not going to let her down." Elena's shift ended at 3 p.m., but she left early, claiming a family emergency. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chen, was sympathetic. Elena never missed work and rarely asked for favors. The next flight to Portland didn't leave until 6 a.m., but Elena booked it anyway and spent the night at the airport, clutching her phone with the photos of Catherine's journal. Every few hours she checked the news, watching with growing anxiety as Meridian's stock price climbed on news of ArthriaCare's approval. During the 5-hour flight, Elena studied every page of the journal again, memorizing details. Catherine had been meticulous in her documentation, recording names, dates, locations. If even half of what she'd written was true, Meridian Pharmaceuticals had committed massive fraud that would result in countless deaths. Angela met her at Portland International Airport, and Elena recognized the family resemblance immediately. The same intelligent eyes, the same determined jawline. But where Catherine had radiated nervous energy, even in her hotel interactions, Angela carried herself with the steady confidence of someone who'd spent years as a nurse in a trauma unit. "I've been thinking about this all night," Angela said, as they drove toward downtown Portland. "Even if we have the evidence, how do we know anyone will listen? Meridian has resources, connections. They've already convinced the world that Catherine was unstable." "We find someone who can't be bought," Elena replied. "A journalist, maybe. Someone who specializes in pharmaceutical scandals." "I have an idea," Angela said. Dr. Sarah Martinez at Oregon Health Sciences University. She worked with Catherine in graduate school. She's been vocal about pharmaceutical corruption, and she has credibility in the medical community. First National Bank was an imposing granite building in downtown Portland. Elena felt exposed as they walked through the lobby, certain that somehow Meridian's people would be watching. But the safety deposit box area was quiet, staffed by a single elderly clerk who barely looked up as Angela presented her identification and the key. "I'm here to access my deceased sister's box," Angela explained, showing Catherine's death certificate that she'd printed from the online obituary. The process was surprisingly simple. Within minutes, they were alone in a small viewing room with safety deposit box 247. Inside was exactly what Catherine had promised: 3 USB drives, a stack of printed emails, and several manila folders thick with laboratory reports and financial documents. Elena's hands shook as she rifled through the papers. Even without a scientific background, she could see the pattern. Trial results showing dangerous side effects that had been systematically replaced with fabricated data showing the drug was safe. "This is incredible," Angela whispered, reading over Elena's shoulder. She documented everything: names, dates, bank records, showing payments to fake researchers. "This isn't just evidence of a cover-up, it's evidence of murder." One of the USB drives was labeled, "For Dr. Martinez." Catherine had apparently planned for this possibility, preparing packages of evidence for specific people she trusted. "We need to get this to Dr. Martinez immediately," Elena said. "And then we need to get copies to every major news outlet we can think of." They left the bank with copies of everything, leaving the originals in the safety deposit box as backup. Angela called Dr. Martinez from the car and arranged an emergency meeting at the university. Dr. Sarah Martinez was a woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair and the kind of intense focus that made Elena understand why Catherine had trusted her. She listened without interruption as Elena and Angela explained how they'd found each other, then began examining the evidence with the methodical attention of a scientist. "This is extraordinary, Doctor," Martinez said after an hour of review. "And terrifying. Catherine was right about everything. This drug will cause massive liver damage in at least 15% of patients and cardiac problems in another 10%. We're talking about thousands of deaths." "Can you stop it?" Elena asked. "The FDA approval was based on falsified data," Dr. Martinez replied. "If we can get this information to the right people fast enough, we might be able to halt distribution. But we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar product launch. Meridian will fight this with everything they have." Dr. Martinez immediately began making calls, first to contacts at the FDA, then to investigative journalists she knew, then to colleagues at other universities who could verify the scientific data. Elena watched the clock nervously. According to news reports, ArthriaCare was scheduled to hit pharmacy shelves in just 4 days. They were racing against time. "There's something else, Doctor," Martinez said after her calls. "I reached out to some former Meridian employees. Catherine wasn't the only one who tried to blow the whistle." Dr. James Liu raised concerns about the trials 8 months ago. He died in a car accident 2 weeks later. Dr. Patricia Vang questioned the statistical analysis. She had a fatal allergic reaction to medication she'd taken safely for years. Elena felt cold. They've been killing people for months. And they would have gotten away with it if Catherine hadn't been so careful about hiding her evidence, Angela added. Over the next 6 hours, Dr. Martinez orchestrated a coordinated release of information. The data went to the FDA, the Department of Justice, and 3 major newspapers simultaneously. By evening, the story was breaking on every news network. Elena watched from Dr. Martinez's office as Meridian's CEO, Raymond Park, gave a hastily arranged press conference denying all allegations and claiming the evidence was fabricated by a disgruntled former employee. "He's lying," Elena said, thinking of Catherine's detailed journal entries. "Of course he is," Dr. Martinez replied, "but it won't matter. The evidence is too comprehensive, too detailed." The FDA has already announced they're suspending distribution pending a full investigation. The investigation that followed was swift and devastating. Within a week, federal agents had arrested 6 Meridian executives, including Raymond Park. The real trial data Catherine had preserved proved that the company had known about Arthria Care's dangers from the beginning. Elena testified before a grand jury about finding the journal and Catherine's final days. The journal itself became key evidence, its detailed chronology providing a roadmap for investigators to follow. The media coverage was intense. Elena found herself thrust into the spotlight as the hotel worker who exposed the scandal, a role she'd never wanted. But she used the attention to keep Catherine's story alive, ensuring that people understood the courage it had taken for one woman to stand against a billion-dollar corporation. "Catherine Walsh died trying to save lives," Elena told a reporter from 60 Minutes. "The least we can do is make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain." The trial lasted 4 months. Elena watched from the gallery as prosecutors presented Catherine's evidence, painting a picture of corporate greed that had prioritized profits over human lives. The defense tried to portray Catherine as unstable, but her journal's meticulous documentation proved her sanity and credibility. Raymond Park was sentenced to 25 years in prison. 5 other executives received sentences ranging from 10 to 15 years. Meridian Pharmaceuticals was fined $2.8 billion and forced into bankruptcy. But for Elena, the real victory came when the judge read his closing statement. Dr. Catherine Walsh died believing she had failed to stop a dangerous drug from reaching the public. Today, because of her courage and the courage of those who honored her final wishes, we can say with certainty that she succeeded. Her death was not in vain. 6 months after the trial ended, Elena returned to room 314 at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel. The hotel had renovated the room after the media attention, but Elena had requested to see it one more time. She stood in the same spot where she'd found Catherine's journal, thinking about how one moment of curiosity had changed everything. If she'd followed protocol and simply bagged the journal for lost and found, Catherine's story might never have been told. Angela joined her, carrying a small memorial plaque they'd had made, in memory of Dr. Catherine Walsh, who chose truth over safety. "The hotel management agreed to let us place this in the room," Angela said. "They want to honor what Catherine did." Elena nodded, running her fingers over the engraved words. She trusted that someone would find her story, I'm just glad it was someone who chose to listen. The Grand Metropolitan had offered Elena a promotion after the publicity, but she'd declined. She liked her work, liked the quiet dignity of keeping spaces clean and welcoming for travelers. But she'd never again assume that guests were just passing through without stories worth telling. As they prepared to leave, Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Martinez. Thought you'd want to know. The Walsh Foundation's new drug safety initiative just received approval for $50 million in federal funding. Catherine's legacy continues. Elena smiled and took one last look around room 314. Sometimes, the most important conversations happened in empty rooms, between the living and the dead, mediated by nothing more than words on a page and the courage to act on truth. She'd cleaned thousands of hotel rooms, but she'd never forget the one that changed everything. Outside, Portland's skyline gleamed in the afternoon sun. Somewhere in the city, people were taking medications they trusted to heal them, never knowing how close they'd come to being poisoned by corporate greed. Catherine Walsh had died alone in a hotel room, but her final act had saved thousands of lives. Elena had simply been the one trusted to carry her message forward. Sometimes that was enough to change the world.